This is Crash Canon. I am the host, Chris, with this podcast, and I have yet another very cool guest with me today. Some of you guys probably know him already, but who are you and what do you do?
What's up? My name is Unc of Doom, and I am the uncle of X to all of my young Catholic brothers.
Absolutely,
No.
the Gen Z folks and the Unk and all that. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, my name is Keith Nestor, and I run a ministry called Down to Earth, and we do stuff for people who are thinking about becoming Catholic, people who are trying to become Catholic, and then people who are trying to grow in their faith. So it's been a pretty wild ride. I used to be a Protestant pastor for about 22 years, and then became Catholic in 2017, and then in about 2020 I started doing stuff online and giving talks and writing books, and then that's just sort of been a snowball from there. And now I'm here with you, brother.
That's right. And I actually got to meet you at the Catholic Creators Conference this past year.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, man. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. I actually hadn't met you before, obviously, because that was the first time I've really been to a Catholic. I used to do like gaming content, stuff like that.
Oh, really?
Years.
Cool.
Yeah, I had a monetized podcast in the gaming space. And then I took a couple years off and came back with this Catholic podcast. And Kyle was nice enough to let me know that the Catholic Creators Conference existed. So I went down and checked it out. And you guys gave some great talks. I really appreciated that.
Hey, thanks, man. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed being there.
And you won tallest Catholic content creator, if I'm not mistaken, last year, right?
Yes, absolutely. That was my crowning achievement.
You had like several hundred votes. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think I think I created that category. I had it made for me. But hey, I'll take it, man.
Yeah. So so you started, let's start at the beginning.
Sure.
You used to do you used to be a Protestant minister for youth ministry, correct?
At one point? Yeah, that was where I got my start. That was my main thing was working with youth, but I also did a bunch of other stuff too. So like I started in youth ministry, and as I kind of grew in my my experience, I started preaching more in the regular church, and then I started doing like mission trips and leading other ministries and supervising other. Then I started leading worship. So then I was a worship leader for a while, and then I became like a senior pastor at a church for about 2 years. And then I was associate pastor at the last church I was at, where I did youth, missions, preaching. I did kind of a lot of everything. So I've sort of been a mutt of roles in my ministry career, which was about 2. Yeah. What happened to the Unc intro?
Well, remember when I loaded up and the brand was broken?
It wouldn't let you do it.
Yeah, I'm actually using, I've got multiple brands in StreamYard, and it won't let me use my normal brand tonight. So the intro's loaded in the other one. That's why I was like, oh no, I can't. So
you guys don't know what you're missing.
Maybe while we're streaming, I can upload it to this one, and hopefully it doesn't kill my bandwidth.
But maybe so. They got to see that. Outro. Taffy worked hard on that.
He did. So yeah, for those that don't know, Taffy did provide me an intro tonight. I can't access it right now, but we'll try and get it going for the outro. We'll see what we can do.
Great idea. Yeah.
All right. So anyway, so you did a lot of work for the Protestant space.
Yes.
But if I remember correctly, you have a special devotion to the Rosary. You do that pretty much every night live almost.
Yeah.
Was that how you started your conversion?
No, not at all, man. No? That actually didn't start until you want to know something, dude? It was 6 years ago today.
On St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah. So here's what happened. So 6 years ago today was this shutdown was starting to happen.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And we were walking out of our parish, and it was going to be the last daily mass. And I went on my YouTube channel and I just did a live stream. I was like, hey, how's everybody doing? This is crazy. And somebody on there said, hey, can we do the rosary on your YouTube channel tomorrow? I had never led the rosary before in my life at that point in time. I'd prayed the rosary quite a bit, as I was becoming Catholic. So, and that was, a couple of years into my conversion, but I'd never led it before. And I thought, well, okay, I can try this. So I said out to everybody on the live stream, I said, come back tomorrow noon and we'll do a YouTube live stream rosary. Now this is, 2020. So there weren't, 3,000 YouTube channels of Catholic things happening every minute. Right, so it's kind of like, okay, wow, we're going to do the rosary here. and people showed up. We prayed the rosary, and then we just kept doing it and we never stopped. And tomorrow will be our 6th year anniversary.
That's awesome.
That's
the anniversary. And I think anybody who spreads the rosary as a devotion for other Catholics to join in on, I mean, you're doing the Lord's work doing that. I mean,
it's the wildest thing, Chris, because I never would have chosen that for anything I would do myself. Because it's not really, I don't know. It just didn't really feel like it could fit with what I was doing. I mean, I like to pray the rosary, but, and it attracted like a very interesting crowd. A lot of older people, and a lot of people that probably weren't really watching much of my content, which at the time wasn't really a whole lot, but we became this family. And it's been so cool to see this diverse group of people grow over the years. I mean, we've got thousands of people every day that will pray with us, either live, or most of them pray on what we call the replay, which is just like they just watch it because it streams to my. Yeah. I made a separate YouTube channel called Rosary Crew with Keith Nester. We go to there, we go to Instagram, we go to X, and then we go to like 5 different Facebook pages, and it's all over the world. It's crazy, and it's just kind of become the center of everything that I do. It's been really wild.
Yeah, it's really, the rosary is one of those devotions, prayers, etc. that really you want to do with other people. I mean, you can do it by yourself, but I always feel like I get more out of it when I do it in a group setting, because it's like a communal prayer then at that point. And it's kind of like the layman version of Liturgy of the Hours if you don't already do that, because you get a lot of that doing that as a devotion as well.
It is. And I tell you something, man, like I have never seen or experienced any one thing that I would say has changed my life, like practically from a spiritual perspective, than praying the rosary every day. I mean, all the promises that we're told by Our Lady about what happens when you pray the rosary, the signal graces, all these other things. I've just never seen anything work the way that's worked in my life. So I'm telling you, like it's incredible. When I run into people who are thinking about Catholicism, and if they mention to me, "Oh, I've started praying the rosary," I'm like, "You're done. You're going to be a Catholic. It's going to happen."
Yeah, the rosary is definitely, if you're doing the rosary daily, you're going to be Catholic. Almost no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's so awesome.
And so what is your favorite set of mysteries?
Well, I think that kind of changes over time for me. But if I had to pick one, oh man, I think I would probably pick the Sorrowful Mysteries.
Yeah.
Just because, praying the rosary is like a peaceful thing, and it's a contemplative thing. Mm-hmm. And it's something that helps us dive deeper into who we are in Christ. And, I'm always moved by the first sorrowful mystery, the agony in the garden, when Christ asked the apostles, "Could you not keep watch with me 1 hour?" And the rosary doesn't take an hour.
Nope.
But I think like that's sort of like the thing that you try to do every day is like, I'm going to pray every day. I can do this. And to meditate on those mysteries and just that journey that he takes, in the garden there, preparing. And if you notice, like in that first sorrowful mystery, Chris, he's already agonizing, sweating drops of blood, and no one has laid a finger on him yet.
Yep.
And it's in that moment where he renews his commitment to the Father's will and says, "Not my will, but thy will be done." And then what I think is so interesting after that is moving forward, you never see him in any kind of emotional distress after that.
Yeah.
He's just so resolved to moving forward into the pain, into the torture, into the death. And it's almost like in that moment of agony in the garden before it starts, it's like he's just like gearing up to head into battle. And I think that's so important, because if we wait until we're in the thick of the suffering and the pain to decide what to do, we'll probably bail. And I'm not saying Jesus would have bailed, but I'm thinking about it from our perspective, right? If we take that time before we're in that to prepare and make a plan, I know I'm walking into suffering. I know I'm walking into difficulty, but I have decided, not my will, but thy will be done. Then when it happens, I already know what I'm doing.
Yep.
But if I don't do that, And I'm just kind of, marching through life, doing my own thing. Then when suffering comes, betrayal comes, torture comes, whatever, then I'm like, whoa, I'm not able to think clearly because the pain is blinding me. And I just want it to stop. And if I haven't already been resolved to follow his will, and I think what's something that we miss sometimes in that first mystery is it says that an angel came and strengthened him there in the garden. And, we could just look, oh yeah, blah, 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 blah. And an angel came and strengthened him. Well, no. Think about that. Jesus, the second person of the Trinity, needed the strength of an angel to come to him. How much more do we need that? And God will provide that for us, but we have to submit to his will.
Yeah. Yeah. And the intercessory powers of the saints as well. Like I pray for the intercession of Saint Joseph all the time.
Oh yeah.
So I got to, for people that don't know, because I'm sure you are aware of all of this, at least for me, when I pray the meditation of the rosary and I'm praying through all the mysteries, I just imagine the Blessed Mother witnessing all of these mysteries, because that helps me to put it into perspective. I don't know if that's how you think about it too. Or...
Oh, I mean, she was there for many of them, but I think for sure, when you get into the sorrowful mysteries and you're walking that road to the cross, I mean, I don't know that she was there when he had the crown of thorns put on him, but I'm sure she was. It doesn't tell us that she was there when he was being scourged at the pillar, but I'm sure she was. My guess is
you think about your own mother, right? If these things are happening to you, your mother's going to be there. She's going to be there supporting you in some way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah, I don't think she left his side. And to walk through that with him, man, I mean, that's the fulfillment of the joyful mystery, the fourth joyful mystery of the presentation, where Simeon says to her, your own soul a sword shall pierce. I mean, that's the fulfillment of that in the passion of our Lord and the sorrowful mysteries. And she was there walking with him. And I think what's interesting is when he's walking that road, carrying the cross, and everybody's coming to him and they're just like, oh, and they're weeping. He says, don't weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. He's not thinking, he's like, hey, no. What's happening to me? I'm not a helpless victim here. I am doing this on my own accord for a purpose to save you. Pray for those that, are going to have to endure,
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other half of that is for anybody whose mother is not around. There was a book I was reading and it finally put things in perspective for me. This kid was growing up without a mother, and his dad, being kind of slick, said, well, there's your mother right there. And he pointed at Mary in the church. And so this boy, anytime he wanted to talk to his mom, would go and pray at the church to Mary for her help. And I'm like, wow, that's special. That was the rest of the book kind of sucked, but that part I really liked. And so that kind of stuck with me. It was like, if I ever had a situation where my wife wasn't around for the kids, like that's what I would do. I would send them to Mary for prayers and stuff, for intercession.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I think that would be, and I mean, obviously it can't hurt asking the Blessed Mother for help, but in general, like that's how I think about that now. It's like she is there for everyone, with or without their own mother.
Absolutely. That's a huge part of it, and when we pray the rosary, it's like we're entering into these mysteries with and through her eyes, and yet she's here with us as we go through that. There's nothing like it, brother.
Absolutely. Do you have a favorite apparition of Mary that you like to, like a devotion to or anything?
Well, I would say Guadalupe. We went there in 2023. We led a pilgrimage there, and it was absolutely amazing. I live about 3 hours from the shrine to Our Lady of Guadalupe in La Crosse, and so I've been up there a ton. I don't know if you've ever seen that place before. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite places to go. And when I was going up there once, I just felt like the Lord saying, you need to go to Mexico City, So we led this pilgrimage down there, and it was incredible. But we're about to go to Lourdes next, in the end of April. So maybe that'll change. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely have a special connection after watching the Song of Bernadette and reading the book. And man, that is a special place. I would love to go there at some point if I can figure out how to do it. So, but unfortunately, right now got too many kids to think about traveling to Lourdes.
Yeah,
they're all
my kids
little
are
young
older.
to fly.
So.
We got our actually. So either this podcast or if I have one next Monday, it'll be the last one for me for about a month or two.
Oh, really?
Because our next baby is due in April. So I'm going to take about a month off, help my wife out, do some work stuff, and then podcasting will resume in May.
Nice.
So for anybody who's wondering, there will be a hiatus here, and I'm announcing it tonight just in case Monday falls through, because I'm not sure how that's going to work
good,
out.
Brother. Well, I hope that all goes well.
Thank you very much. But yeah, so as far as like traveling with kids, we have gone to some cool shrines in our home state, Michigan. And we've gone to different places, and there's cool little, actually what's funny is some of the coolest places I've been to are like private devotional places, like grottos at people's houses. Some people have some really cool stuff. And, that's obviously the public and the actual approved visions of the church, various things like that. Those are very cool. But some of these private ones that you'd never see if you weren't like friends with various people, those are kind of special.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So anyways, whatever you do, don't hurt his puppy. Is this something related? Yeah. Do you have a puppy that's I should be concerned about?
I don't know. She's not in here. I mean, we brought her to the conference last year. Remember her? I don't know if you saw her. She was in the van most of the time. So hot last summer, man. Holy cow.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Haley knows my puppy. She's met her before.
So you had the puppy at the conference. I guess I must have missed that. So I think the only time you and I interacted other than during like the speeches and stuff was when Amber Rose introduced me to you.
Okay. Yeah. I remember that.
And then we took the picture where I stood down and you were taller. No, you were super tall and I was just short.
That's right. Get it right, dude.
All right. So here's a question I have for you. So you've done a lot of work with mentoring young people, especially since they're all calling you Unc now. What's that been like for you?
I don't know. I mean, it's sort of, here's what's interesting about this for me now. I haven't really been in a role like that in a long time because I've been in youth ministry for forever. So when these guys are doing that, it's pretty funny. I mean, I'm not really like mentoring anybody. I'm just,
well, no, but what you're doing is a positive influence on Jen. That's why I try to tell Mike Pantile too. I'm like, what you're doing is a positive influence, whether you're doing it, gearing it for them or not, but what you're putting out to the world is positively influencing these people.
Well, that's what I hope. That's what I hope. And that's a humbling thing because I mean, I certainly don't have it all figured out, but I think that there's so many things that young men have to deal with today. And I think it's so easy to get sucked into the world's way, even within the realm of, being Catholic or whatever, trying to live your life as a Catholic man. There's a lot of negative influences out there that are coming in, through the lens of, hey, this is related to faith. And so sometimes we can get sucked into things thinking that it's like part of our faith, but the reality is it's still a negative influence. So I think that, what I try to do is set a good example, but at the same time, not sort of walk around with my head in the clouds either.
Yeah.
To understand what's really going on the best I can, but also to try to figure out like, okay, what do these guys need, and is there anything that I've learned in my life that could be helpful to them? And I'm always happy to share that stuff. But one of the things I think that I don't know, maybe it's interesting, maybe it isn't, is I don't like to stick my nose into things where it hasn't been invited. You know what I mean? So I don't like go out there in the world and be like, all right, let me tell you all what I think about all this, stuff that everybody's doing and all this. Like, I don't do that. If someone asks me what I think about something, I'll usually tell them. But sometimes I think it's best to just sort of like, just be who you want to be. Try to figure that out. I've always thought, what would I, if I could go back in time and talk to, 23-year-old Keith, what would I tell him? And the answer is a lot. And the truth is that that's really just all I want to do is share with these guys some of the things that I've walked through, some of the things that I've learned from, and also to, not in like a condescending way, like, well, I know more than you. Because the truth is, I get inspired by some of these young guys all the time. I mean, I'm like, I see what like the Gen Z guys are doing. I'm just like, man, these guys are amazing. They just do stuff,
Yeah, they do. That is true.
But I also think too, it's like, okay, there can easily be, it seems like there's like a million forks in the road. If you're like a Gen Z young man, are you going to go this way? You're going to go this way. You're going to go this way. You're going to go this way. And it seems like there's so much pressure put on people to pick something. Like, are you going to be this kind of person? Or are you going to be that kind of person? You know,
choosing sides all the time.
Yeah. Like choosing sides. Cause we're so divided and we're so polarized, and there's so many tribes and there's so many camps and there's so many different, niches of who we are, and everyone's always trying to like establish themselves and to be for something is really more defined about, hey, I'm against that thing.
Yeah, and when you're just against something, you're not standing for anything, really.
Yeah, you're just basically what you do. If that's becomes your personality is my personality is all the things I'm against.
Yeah,
then what I have to do is make sure that I'm against all the right people, and that everybody knows I'm against all the right people. So we sort of go through this kind of reverse virtue signaling, where instead of like virtue signaling, like, oh, I'm such a nice, loving person, I fed a homeless guy, or I helped an old lady across the street, we kind of get into this thing where we're like, oh, I hate that guy, and that guy did this, and that girl's an idiot, and this person said that. And it's like, okay, look at, it's like we're going to virtue signal against, and I don't know. I find that to be a little bit annoying.
I'm sorry about that. I added my phone so I could upload Taffy's video while we're still chatting. So if anybody saw that weird thing, that was me.
I thought maybe somebody else was coming on here. Yeah.
Nope. I would have told you if they were. All right. I'm uploading the asset, and then I'll remove my phone from here. That way it doesn't cause any more problems. Anyways, so sorry about that. Okay. One of the things that I've noticed you do on Twitter, and I really X, whatever you want to call it these days, that I really appreciate is a lot of times your tweets are gut checks for things I was going to post. And then I see your tweet or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I probably shouldn't post that. Cause I saw earlier today, we're like, what if I just muted everybody who is infighting essentially? And then I just didn't like, what would my timeline look like or whatever? It was something along those lines. Wasn't that your tweet?
Yeah, I just said I was just like, what would my timeline look like if I got rid of everybody who just needlessly criticized other people? Because I see like it just seems like that's just what you do. You wake up in the morning and it's like, who can I criticize? Who can I slam? Who can I denigrate? And the truth is, even when I make a tweet like that, in some ways I gut check myself, because wait a minute, am I doing the same thing? So I can't tell you how many times, like I only tweet maybe once or twice a day. And sometimes I'll go days without doing it. Right. Yeah. But I probably could shoot out like 20 a day. And there's so many times where I have something written and then I just delete it. And the reason why is because I do a gut check on myself. And sometimes I'll ask myself, I'll say, why am I saying this? Right. What am I accomplishing with this? And the number one question, that I try to ask myself, and I don't always do it very well, is this going to be helpful to anybody? Or is this just me trying to get attention, or trying to, show people how snarky I can be, or, whatever. And so to me, that's kind of like, I struggle with that, because I want to like build people up and help people and lift people up and encourage people. I don't want to be like just another negative voice tearing everybody down. And it's hard because I think it's so easy to get locked into that, just because negativity is what gets attention. It's what gets reaction, and it's what gets followers, people. Because here's the thing. And the reason why I think is this: if I can befriend the complainer and the negative, then it doesn't apply to me. Right.
Right.
If you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, I can be safe. So I can, be, pile on to this other person too. And then, whatever. And I'm thinking, no, man, is that really helpful? And the scripture is so clear about that. We need to say things that build each other up and encourage one another while it is still day. I love when the scripture says that. While it's still day, encourage each other and speak truth and life to one another, and not always run around doing let's pull each other down, because we can't do that without feeling superior to other people. That's the bottom line. When I rip somebody else down, it's because I feel superior to them. And we think we all would admit that that's a sin. You know, pride is a deadly sin. And yet it goes hand in hand with this kind of, I don't know, way that we can use these platforms to just take the worst part of ourselves and just blah all over everybody.
Oh yeah, no doubt the vices come out when you go after other people. I mean, it almost always happens. I noticed something like that happened. It was in reverse. It wasn't actually me. It was somebody else who decided to go after me. And I just started praying for them because I was like, it was clear that something was off, because this person had never interacted with me before. And all of a sudden they're quote tweeting me and they're just being nasty. And I'm like, what in the heck? I guess I'll just pray for this person, because whatever I say back isn't going to change their mind if they're already mad and angry.
Yeah. Yeah. I fall into that trap too, because I mean, the reality is, dude, if I was unhinged, I'd be like a maniac on there, because I have that in me, dude. I have that snarky sort of, you know, self-righteous kind of, hey, I think I know more about this than you. I can be very sharp with my words if I don't hold myself back. So in some ways, I feel like I have to rein that in order to just be out here, you know, and I haven't always done it perfectly. You know, I think the times where I struggle the most with it are where I feel like I need to defend the faith, you know?
Yeah.
So like when people, but then, you know, so I've had a few go arounds with certain people on X around that kind of stuff. And then I always have to stop and go, okay, wait a minute. What am I doing here? Is this helping? Is this changing somebody's mind? And the reality is, all I'm doing if I engage with that person is I'm feeding their pride, their ego. I'm encouraging them, because these anti-Catholic slop posters that just that's what they're doing. They're baiting us.
Well, the problem is, you interact with them, you're giving them more attention.
And that's my point. And I've fallen for that a few times. Because sometimes I just can't help it, you know. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, you know, I got the perfect zinger here or whatever. But it's never, I can say this, it's never ended with someone going, wow, you know what? You were right. I think I'll become Catholic now.
Right.
I mean, it's that I know of. I don't know. I mean, so I just think we have to be careful with that. You know, it's a dangerous game to play with that. So for me, I always try to say, hey, can I lift people up with this stuff? And sometimes the best thing I can do is just say nothing.
Yep. Yeah, I've got a couple of friends that actually, and a priest, but a couple of friends for sure that I've messaged and said, hey, if you ever see a tweet of mine that you think was probably a mistake or a bad idea, message me immediately and I will accept the fraternal correction. And I'm just going to give a shout out to Kyle Whittington, because more than once I've gotten a text from him where he said, hey, I see what you're doing there. Who's that helping? Are you sure you wanted to post that? Was that a good idea? And I was like, you know what, Kyle, you're right. I probably should not have posted that.
Yeah.
And I've taken a few down.
Yeah. I think that's good to have those people in your life if you're going to sort of dip into that world where it's like, all right, do I want to do this, you know?
Yeah.
And I try to imagine, like, okay, how would I feel? You know, I travel a lot and I go to a lot of different like parish missions in different places, and I try to think about like the holiest people that I meet. Okay. And most, you know, the holiest people that you meet, you're not going to find on the internet. No. You know, they're just like in a monastery somewhere, in a parish, or in a homeless shelter helping people. They're not sitting on X all day like I am, right, or whatever.
You mean Mother Teresa wasn't on X posting snarky things about the faith?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Go figure. And I try to imagine what would they say if they saw that thing I just posted? You know, would they be impressed? You know, or would they just be like, ooh, that was a little, you know, unnecessary? I don't know. But it's hard. So anyway, back to the whole like mentoring guys thing. You know, it's weird. Sorry. I don't feel like I do that like intentionally, but I think sometimes it's more about just being in this space and trying to not fall into some of the traps that I have fallen into in the past. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, really, I look back at like the Home Improvement, right? Tim Allen, when he's looking for help, he goes outside. He's got his neighbor right there. Anytime like it seems like he needs help, he's right there to listen and kind of give him a quick little help. And that's usually enough for most people, is that little bit, that tidbit that you need at the time you need it. And I feel like you've been there a lot for these guys. So,
well, you know, it's interesting. When I was a young man back in the day, I worked at this restaurant, and I lived in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Okay. And I had decided that I was going to make a change to my life in a very just kind of trivial way, but it had way more impact than I realized that it did. And I had made this decision that I wasn't going to swear anymore. Okay. So I just didn't curse. And I didn't like go around and say, hey, everybody, guess what? I don't curse.
Right.
I just didn't do it. And it was amazing to me how all of the people I worked with, they almost immediately noticed it. And it didn't take long for people to start going, hey, what's the deal, man? How come you don't curse? I noticed you never curse, Keith. What's the deal with that? And it was funny because they thought it was because I was from Iowa. They're like, oh, they don't do that. And I'm like, no, it's nothing to do with that. I love Jesus. I'm trying to live a life that's honoring to the Lord. And so I don't do. Now I know that people like, it's funny because like, since I've become Catholic, it's like, oh, Catholics, I know Catholics that curse all the time. And the truth is I don't, to me, that's very undignified, but, so I learned this lesson that it wasn't like, I didn't have to go around and like, hey, everybody, just, I'm super holy. Hey, everybody, just, I go to church every week. I mean, I talked about it, but I just, the things I didn't do sometimes spoke more than the things I did do in those environments. And I think the same thing can kind of be true, in these environments, and also to be friendly to whoever wants to be friendly to you. Yeah. Which I think is very unusual in this space, because, people who are like super, because I've noticed this, like people are super triggered online, and they're like very eager to, like, if you say something, they want that nobody gives anybody the benefit of the doubt. Everybody wants to jump on you. Everybody wants to assume that everything you say is an argument or an attack. And, I remember once I asked a question on X about orthodoxy once. And I just asked this particular question, and all these like ortho bro dudes started laying into me, and I wasn't arguing. I was just literally asking a question, and it wasn't like intended to be a snarky question, but they all took it that way. So all these people just like went off on me. And this one dude was like going off of me. And I just literally said, I'm just asking an honest question, and not one person on here has given me an honest answer. And I said, I think there's something I think that says something about this community, And so this guy actually said, okay, well, he kind of said, all right, let's see what happens. And he gave me an honest answer. And even though he was ripping on me earlier, I said, you know what, dude, you seem like a pretty cool guy. I'm going to follow you. And so now he follows me, I follow him, and we have little friendly interactions, But I think sometimes there's such a knee-jerk reaction to things that people post that we go, wait a minute, is that guy on my side or is he not on my side? I can't, whatever. We have to learn how to be cool to people who aren't necessarily on our side or whatever.
Right.
Now I have my limits. I mean, there's some things I'm just like, nope, I'm not even gonna entertain that. But I think it comes down to this, dude. Sometimes you just gotta be nice to people.
100%. And I think one of the hardest things I've had to learn with this podcast is whoever I bring on for an interview, their audience, good or bad, is going to come with them, at least to a degree. And so depending on who you bring on your podcast, your audience is going to be different. And sometimes that's a good thing. And sometimes it turns into it just depends on who the person is and what kind of a following they've fostered. And I've learned a lot of different communities that exist in the Catholic space over the time I've been doing this.
That is a great point, Chris, because, you can tell a lot about a person who has like a channel, whatever, by their audience. And I'm very, very grateful and proud of my audience on my channel. whenever I haven't done them in a while, but I used to do a lot of live streams on the regular Keith Nestor channel on Monday. I do these Monday night live streams. I haven't done them in a while because I've been traveling so much. And I'd bring guests in, different things like that. And everyone would always say, man, your audience, it's full of just awesome people. They're so encouraging and nice and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that's because that's who we've curated in this audience. Like that's how we behave. We're not getting on here and ragging on people and criticizing everybody, because that will draw that crowd. We're not just going to come on here and complain and gossip about people, So to me, it's kind of like, okay, you can tell a lot about a channel by who are the people that hang out there.
Yeah, and sometimes depending on the audience, the way the audience curates itself, a chat can be the make or break point for somebody watching your channel consistently.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. I had one time where on Instagram, I'd posted this reel talking about Catholicism, whatever, and people started arguing and everything like that. And one of my friends from my old church made a comment on my Instagram post, and people went after this person. And I was like, dude, no, don't do that.
You're like, yeah, that's
I'm
not
like,
good.
No. We're not doing that here. We're not gonna, if somebody asks an honest question, we're not going to assume ill will. We're going to assume this person is a sincere, seeker of truth. And I know sometimes it gets annoying. I know we're all tired of being told that we worship Mary, and we're all tired of being told that, we got rid of the second commandment from the 10 commandments or whatever. But when someone comes in there and they have that question, hey, I'm just curious about it. If everybody just dogpiles that person, they're never going to come. And I remember I was kind of watching that happen. And I just commented, I said, oh, thank you so much for your question. That's such an awesome, such a great question. I remember having that question too. And it was sort of like, okay, everybody, this is what we're going to do here, because you got to be protective of people. If someone comes into your chat, and thank God we don't know how that's going to happen. There could be someone who just wanders into your chat, and if they find people who are Catholic that are open and awesome and loving and welcoming, they're going to be like, okay, this is cool. But if they find nothing but a bunch of jerks, they're going to be like, I'm out of here. Is that what we want? Again, we're trying to be helpful. That's the point. We're not trying to build up our own little kingdoms. We're trying to build up God's kingdom.
Yep.
And I think that's something that we have to think about.
Yeah, I do think there's room in the space for lots of different kinds of channels, obviously, like Avoiding Babylon being more of a comedy show. This one being more of an interview style show for the most part, interview and conversation. Yours is more about evangelization and bringing people into the church more than my show really is, honestly. But it's nice that this space exists for every different kind of content. So depending on what people want, hopefully they can find it.
That's what I love about it. I mean, people say, oh man, there's so many YouTube channels out there, this and that. People can say anything they want. I'm like, that's great. Everybody can do what everybody wants to do. And if you don't like somebody, if you don't like their channel, if you don't agree with them, you don't have to watch it. I can't tell you how many times I've had to tell people
and just turn it off. Why are you watching?
Like, people come on my comments and they'll just be like railing, I can't stand what you say and this and that, and I'm sick of looking at your stupid hair and all this. I mean, they'll just go off, and I'll just be like, look, dude, I never told you to come here. If you don't want to hear me talk about the Catholic Church, then get the friggin' crap off my channel, because that's what I'm gonna do. If you don't want to hear me talk about Jesus, if you don't want to hear me talk about how much I love the Catholic faith, then stop coming to my channel, because I'm not going to stop doing that because you said so. I mean, it's like, okay. And that's the thing. I go, look, if I don't want to, I don't know. This gets me going, because I have never once gone on to, somebody's channel that I don't agree with just to flame them. I had this guy the other day, he wrote this, I don't know. You know how you get those
yes.
comments on Instagram where it's just like,
I like to refer to those as Diamond-esque, like the Diamond Brothers always post this giant long expose type comments whenever they do.
Yeah. So this guy this guy wrote one of those. I mean, and I could tell from I read like 3 words. I'm like, okay, this guy's an anti-Catholic Protestant. And it's just, boom, 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 you know, and I just went to the bottom. And I said, dude, nobody's reading all this, you know? And
I usually say I'm praying
you know
for you. That's usually what I say.
He goes, oh, well, let me summarize. And then he and I said, and so he summarized, and then he said, you know, I watched your entire video. You feel the least you could do is do me the same courtesy and read my comment. And I said, okay, so I'll tell you what, you go make a video outlining what you believe, and then I'll go on your channel and write a volume of why you're an idiot, and then I'll call that courtesy, because that's what you did.
Yeah.
That's not courtesy, dude. If you don't like it, just beat it. And so to me, I have no problem saying that to people. I'm like, look, I'm happy you're here, but if you're angry about it, then go somewhere else. I'm not going on your channel to rip on you. To me, that's just like, it's so lame that people do that. But I think there's a species of people out there that's their identity is I am a Catholic.
I think
I'm a Catholic hating, Protestant person, and my identities, I go on all these channels and I just cut and paste these comments that have nothing to do with the actual video.
Yeah. And
I'm spreading the gospel. And I'm just like, no, you're done, dude.
Honestly, I think people that do that, because for example, like I would never do that. Like, why would I? I've got my mass, I got my kids, I got my wife, I got a job.
Yeah.
So for people to have the time to waste to do that, because you're not like writing a 10-page book on a YouTube comment section is not going to convince anybody of anything, really. But if you're missing something in your life is not where it's supposed to be, I would guess is probably the faith. But and I think that's why they keep coming back to videos like yours or like mine or like anybody in the Catholic space, because they recognize the truth and they don't accept it, and so they're missing it. And they feel the need to inform everybody about that while they're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I just, I think I've gone through a lot of different phases of how I deal with that. And basically, I will interact with some people if I feel like they have a sincerity about them or they're, genuinely searching. But and I typically don't block people. The only time I will block people is if I can tell that they're just a troll. Like, and what I mean by a troll is this, in the true sense of a troll, okay? Yeah. That they are literally they're not interacting with the content. They're just going onto a channel and posting their cut and paste, spiel to see if they can get a reaction out of somebody. Like that has no place for me. So I'm just like, nope, you don't get to you're not going to use my channel as a platform for your crap. If you're not even like interested in the material. Okay. So I will do that. But then I also, if somebody is being mean or disrespectful to another person in my audience, like I'm very protective of the people that are in the audience. Sorry, I spit on my teleprompter here.
I adjusted my camera midstream earlier. I don't know if you noticed, but
so like if somebody comes on, like, somebody says something and then someone, oh, you're a horrible, they're gone, anyway. Yeah.
Well, on top of that, then you get the opposite end of that spectrum where you get super fans who really want you to read their comments, like either telling you what they'd like to see more of, and then they write you a book as well. And there's like this, you kind of talked about it in the speech you gave at the Creators Conference. I don't know if you want to cover that at all here, but it was interesting to hear your thought process on that, because it seems like it's evolved over time.
Oh, it's completely evolved, and it's hard because if it depends on your own personality too. I was a pastor. So I have that heart, I want to help people. I want to walk with people through things. So when someone reaches out and they've got this story, or they've got this need for help or whatever, I want to try to help them. And, but what that's turned into some, it's turned into some beautiful things in my life, but it's also turned into some difficult things too, because you can't do for some people what they want you to do for them. And so there's, you don't need to be judged. So there's a couple things you have to think about. Number one is you have to always remember what this space allows for and what it doesn't allow for. And just because someone comments on a video or someone makes a video and you interact with that person does not all of a sudden mean that person can fix your life.
Right.
So,
oh yeah.
So I can make a video about something, but that doesn't mean I can fix somebody else's life, you know? And I've had issues where people are like, "Hey, Keith, I really need your help with this. I really need your help with that." And then I'll talk to the person and I'm like, "I can't help you with that." That's like, you know, I can't do marriage counseling through a YouTube comment thing or even through a Zoom thing or what. Like, that's not what I'm here to do. I'm making content about my faith. But what can happen sometimes, and this is the hard thing, you know, is that some people will, you know, they'll send you a message or whatever, and if you respond to them, now all of a sudden they feel like, well, hey, we're bros now, so you need to, you know, give me this attention that I need. And then when you can't do that, then they get super pissed off and they leave, you know. And I've had that happen many times where people were part of this stuff that we're doing, and, you know, they needed more from me than I was able to do for them. And then they just got mad, you know? So you have to be careful about that. And then also you have to be careful because some people just are they have an unhealthy attachment to people that they see online. And
yes,
they can get a little weird sometimes. And
that one way friendship where you're talking to everybody and they think you're talking to them. The parasocial relationship.
Yeah. And I understand what that's like. I understand it's kind of weird. I mean, I have people I watch on YouTube and stuff like that too. And I understand how those things,
because you feel like you know them.
Yeah, you do. And
they share their life.
How many times people will come up to me at an event or something, they go, "Oh, I feel like I know you," you know? And I always think that's great, you know, but they have to remember, like, I don't know you, you know? So right. Like recently I had somebody reach out to me with some very serious information, but without any context.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do with this? And they're like, well, I don't know. I mean, I told you. And I'm like, well, I don't know you. Like, I don't know if what you're saying is true. I don't know if what you're saying, like, I don't know any of the context. And they're like, well, you know, it doesn't matter. And it's like, no, you have to remember that people who are making content online they're not necessarily going to be able to solve all your problems. Now, I love to try to help people. And I've, like I said, I've had some great experiences with that. But the truth is the larger your reach becomes, the less you can even get involved in some of that stuff, you know?
Yep.
And that's just something that you have to walk through if you do it all. I mean, I know other people who don't even, they're like, nope, I don't read comments. I don't answer DMs. I don't talk to people. I know speakers that they go give talks and you never see them other than on the stage and my daughter's trying to FaceTime me with my granddaughter, but I will tell her I can't do that.
If you need to take something, just let me know.
No, she's okay. She's okay. She's just my granddaughter goes to bed about this time of night, and usually she likes to say goodnight to me. So I'll just say I'm on a Zoom on a call right now. Anyway, so like I've seen that, and I used to think, honestly, like I used to judge people that did that. I'd be like, oh man, that guy thinks he's a rock star. He doesn't talk to people. But I kind of get it now to a certain degree because I'm kind of outgoing. You know, I'm like an extrovert person most of the time, but not everybody's like that.
Yeah.
And for some people to be around people they don't know is really freaky to them. It's tough for them. So they you know, they struggle with that. So to them, it's like, oh man, you know, I heard Matt Fradd say one time, you know, he was talking about, he's an introvert. He goes, some people like to go out and be around people. He goes, I get into an elevator with a stranger and it ruins my day, you know?
Honestly, sometimes when I'm walking out of work, at the end of my workday, I just want to like put my head down and walk to my car and have no one bother me. Because that's kind of my space, my time to decompress from the workday. And that's just kind of how I am. And then other people, they're like, as soon as they see me walking out the door, they're like, I want to be right next to this guy, talk to him all the way out. And I'm like, okay. All right, we're doing this now.
You know, and everybody has their own stuff they're dealing with. And you know, when I go to events, I always think to myself, like, okay, I am on, like, it kind of depends. Like if somebody's picking me up from the airport, okay, I am on like the second that I get off that airplane, you know, and I have to like be available and ready to be present with people, because I'll get into a car with someone I've never met before that's there to pick me up. And oftentimes they're so excited to meet, and It's like, as soon as I get in the car, like, oh, Keith, blah, blah. And they want to just tell me all these stories and all this stuff like that. And I can't just be like, because I don't want to be.
But you probably prep for that, right? You're ready. You're the whole time you're on your way there. You're like, okay, I know what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be talking to this person and this person. Like that. That's how I prep for these things. I'm like, okay, I know people that are going to be there. I know how they are, and I know who I got to talk to when I get there. And then I'm ready for it. But then at the end of the weekend, I'm like, okay, I got to decompress. I'm like dead.
And you have to know that about yourself, right? So like I go, okay, that's so, it's kind of weird. I'm kind of sharing some weird stuff here tonight, but like one of the things that I had to do in this sort of traveling thing that I do is I had to, you have to do a couple things. Yeah. You have to have the right boundaries. To me, everything's about boundaries.
Yep.
And you have to understand like what's healthy for you. Where are you going to be okay? And where are you going to be like pushed? Okay. Yeah. And like I said, I'm kind of an extroverted person. I'm a people pleaser. Like I want to say yes to everybody. I want to do whatever. But one of the things that I had to like make a change a few years ago was when I travel, like I don't stay in people's houses anymore, because I used to like, and if it's different if I know the person, but if I don't know if I don't know people, sometimes like you get booked for an event or whatever, and they're like, okay, we're going to fly you to this city and we'll pick you up at the airport. And then you're going to stay at our house. We have a guest room for you, and whatever. And, I'd be like, yeah, cool, whatever. Well, oftentimes what will happen is you would show up for that. And because people are hospitable and nice and friendly, they have a lot of things planned for the day. Yeah. And you go do your event. And then when you come home, it's back to the house, you're not done because hey, I hope it's cool. We invited, 20 people over that wanted to meet you. So you're like, okay. And so you're kind of like, you're already exhausted after maybe doing 2 or 3 talks, but in their minds, they're doing you a favor because it's like, oh, hey, we want him to feel welcomed and cared for and this and that. And I appreciate all that. So what I had to do was just say, hey, I'm going to stay in a hotel or I'll stay in a rectory,
Yeah.
Now, again, it's totally different if I know the people, if they're like personal friends of mine, I've met them before, I know them. And
cool. They're not going to probably bring 20 people over unless they're also close friends.
Well, yeah, it's totally cool. But you also never know where you're going to walk into, man. I mean, I've been in some really weird situations where, you're like, okay, you get to the house and people start bickering at each other and the wife and the husband are fighting and you're just like, okay, I'm just sitting over here or this or that or whatever. So, I mean, I've had really good experiences, but so anyway, my point is I had to learn that about myself. Like, okay, I need to be able to, at the end of the day, whenever that is over, and I'll stay to the very end, usually I'm the last guy that leaves. At these events, I go to a table, I talk to people, I hang because I want to have those conversations with people.
Yep.
And I want everyone to feel like, they were important. But then it's like, okay, when I hit that, when I have that moment where it's like time to be done, I need to just be on my own,
Yeah.
And I think it's the same kind of principle online. I know we're kind of making a journey here.
Yeah.
But you have to find your boundaries online. Okay. And you have to be willing to say, how am I going to be? Who am I going to speak with? Who am I not going to speak with? And we talked about this at the conference too.
Yeah.
If you're a dude, you need to be extremely careful the things you say to the ladies.
Yep.
Extremely careful. You should never say anything in a DM to somebody if you even need to do that. I think it's a rare instance where a man needs to DM a woman. That's like, only if you're like working on something together or something. I don't know, but like you just have to have these boundaries and you have to be careful with these things so you don't put yourself in weird situations and you don't let other people get put in weird situations. And sometimes the boundary is I'm not going to, for me, like I have certain boundaries. I was like, okay, I'm not going to talk crap about other people publicly online. I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to, say vulgar things to try to, get attention or whatever. I don't know. I just think you have to have those healthy boundaries, because the internet is a place that rewards you for pushing the limit.
It does. It does.
And that's very dangerous, in my opinion.
Yeah. And the algorithm likes to push things that will get you to interact with them, which is why a lot of things that show up in your algorithm are either things that make you mad, things that make you happy, or things that are shocking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it knows how to get you to interact and stay on there longer.
Yeah. Like, the fear. I mean, everything's about, like, a lot of people learned, and maybe I haven't seen this as much lately, but I remember a couple of years ago, it seemed like, Chris, that everything was about fear. Like,
yeah,
the one thing that could destroy your life if you don't do it right.
It fills you with dread, and then you have to watch it to make sure that you're not experiencing this or having this.
Exactly.
And then the other half of the coin is, right, so I last year when I started this podcast, I don't have a ton of followers. I got like 800 some, but I had like 200 or so back when, and that was mostly just people I knew from my old podcast that were following me. And now I've got a bunch of people that I have no idea who they are that follow my account, and I've only got 800. I don't know how it is when you have like tens of thousands or however many you have, but I had my DMs wide open. It's like, anybody who needs help or has an interesting story to tell, I'm happy to hear you out. And then I just got flooded with spam, just tons spam, and then bad actors, people that are trying to sell you a subscription to websites you don't want to be on. And it's like, all right, I'm sorry, this was a fun time meeting new people, but I cannot leave my DMs wide open anymore. And because it was just bad. I'd open up a DM and I'm like, oh, time to go to confession. It's like just the worst things you could imagine would show up in my messages. And so I have since now closed all of my DMs down to just verified, destroy the spam. And if somebody really wants to reach out to me, then I say, all right, tweet at me and I will allow your DM to come through. That kind of thing. You know what I mean? But just horrendous. There, when you turn off the filters and you're like, okay, anybody who needs prayers, just message me, whatever, you get the worst stuff. I don't know if I'm assuming you probably have spam filters on and all that, but
I got all kinds of filters going on. So like I got rid of Twitter a few years ago because I didn't know how all that stuff worked, and crap was showing up on my feed, and I'm like, oh, I don't want this. So I just deleted Twitter. So the reason why like my X feed is like Keith Nestor 1 is because Keith Nestor, that was my first one. I don't have the password. I can't get into it.
Oh, really? That was
they locked me out of it. Like, so I had to make a new one, a few years ago, once I figured out how I could like protect myself from all of the, crap mostly. But I don't know, like, I think that the DM things are interesting because there are some times where I really am able to interact with somebody and hopefully help them answer some questions or whatever. That's happened. But if I see something that just looks like spam, it's just gone.
Yeah.
I don't interact with it.
I recently had a DM where it looked like somebody was actually in need, and I was like, okay, so I'm messaging back and forth with this person, and then it turned into a scam, and I was like, fell for it again. Yeah. And I was like, how much time did I just waste thinking I was helping somebody, and it turns out they just want to scam me. It's like, and that was the last straw for me. I was like, all right, I got to close off the DMs to just the whole world. And really your speech had already led me in that way a little bit last year with what you said at the creators conference, because not everybody online can be your friend. Some people have to be, boundaries. Right.
Yeah.
And, that one stuck with me when that last scam just got me. I was like, all right, these people are wasting my time that I could be spending with my family right now, or sleeping, or whatever else I could have been doing at that time. I got to close it off to only people that actually need help and are there to do the right thing, and not there to scam me, and not there to just mess with my time, because time is valuable. You can't get it back.
Yeah, exactly. I think the other thing that was happening to me, and this still happens, and this is kind of like, again, boundaries, right? But when your online presence is kind of growing, one of the things that can happen is people will try to hijack it.
Yeah.
And they'll try to be like, hey, and I think most of them mean well. I really do. But what can happen is people can sort of work their way into your life under the guise of, hey, I have this thing occurred to me. I have this idea for you of what you should do. Or I really want to be on your show, or this or that or whatever. Or it's like they want to take what you're doing and make it about them somehow, either by like promoting. I mean, that happens all the time where it's just like, okay, hey, I'm doing this, and we'd like to partner with you. Whenever someone messages me and says they want to partner with me, I don't even read anymore, because what I understand partner means is I do a bunch of stuff for them for free and they do nothing for me. That's what it typically means when someone says that they want to partner with me. I've never once had somebody say, hey, I want to partner with you, where it was actually a partnership. I mean, don't worry. I've done like partnerships, but that's not how those things happen. They happen in different ways.
Yeah. Usually you got to bring something to the table to ask for something also on the table.
Yeah. But it's amazing to me how many people, they don't understand that. And they think the thing that they're bringing to the table is their deal, which in their minds is a good thing. So here's what I tell people. Like, I'll have people that will say things to me like, hey, Keith, I've got this amazing story. I really want to share it, and what I will say to them is, great, do it. Share it.
Yeah. Put it out on a channel that you started.
Exactly. I'm like, you should do that. You should make a channel and you should share that story. That's so great. You should totally do that. But usually what that means when they say that is, hey, Keith, I have this great story. I want to share it. What that means is they want me to share it, for them, or for me to make their thing the thing, and again, I can't get involved in all that stuff with people, so it's, and some people get really mad, some people get pretty ticked off if you don't, cater to them in that way. It's hard. And I go, well, okay, I'm sorry, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I think so. I had Taylor Marshall on last year, and he had some really good advice for relationships in general. He said that if what you're bringing to the table is not like Samwise Gamgee, then expect that friendship to fall apart. Because if you're expecting more out of your friends than they expect that, then what you're bringing, am I saying this right? If you're not bringing as much to the table as your friends are bringing like, you want to be a giver, not a taker. I guess
that's the bottom line.
Yeah. You want to be a giver, not a taker.
That's the bottom line. You got to ask yourself that when you have these things, these interactions, and I know people are just like, well, I don't know what to do. And I understand it's tough. And I think part of my deal with that is, when I started doing this, I just did it,
Right.
And the last thing I would have ever thought to do was find somebody else who was doing them and then like try to weasel my way into their world so that they could help me, and like do like whatever, I never did that. But some people have no shame with that. They're just like, hey man, I get those requests all the time. Hey man, I got this. And sometimes I will listen, because if I feel like it lines up with what I'm doing, I'm like, okay, that's kind of, but I've got a very specific path that I'm trying to carve here with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And here's what I've learned the hard way. If I vary off that, if I stray from that vision that I feel like God's given me and sort of go a little different direction to accommodate somebody who really wants me to, it almost always ends in a negative experience.
And you're compromising on your mission then.
Exactly. And so I've had to just learn really what I had to learn. I've had to learn to say no to people, and that's hard, because I don't like doing that.
Yeah. And I think something people forget about is if you ask to do something on somebody else's platform, you're essentially asking for them to give a piece of themselves to you for nothing in return. And that's what you're saying. Kyle gave me this advice from the get-go. He said, never ask to be on somebody else's show. Always ask them to come on yours, and then let the relationship build from there. Because if you ask to go on their podcast, you're starting on the wrong foot. You're already on the wrong foot, because you're asking for something they didn't offer.
That's great advice. It's great advice. And I mean, I understand that there are publicists in the world that their job is to get their authors on podcasts. So you're never going to make that stop.
Well, yeah, but that's a job that they do,
Yeah.
and you understand that. That's not random guy with 20 followers on Twitter saying, "Hey, let me come on your podcast."
Yeah, exactly. You know, it gets awkward when it's in person though sometimes too.
Fair enough. Yeah,
I was horrified, dude. I was horrified once. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you a Matt Fratt story, okay, for a second.
Okay.
So the first night that I ever met Matt, and before I had ever met him, I was invited to go on Pints with Aquinas, okay, but it didn't work out. The days didn't work out when I was able to be there, and he was so I had been invited on the show, and it didn't work, okay. So about, I don't know, 6 months later, I go to this conference, and they're like, the Friday night is like the social hour or whatever. And I walk in there with my wife, and Matt is there. I'd never spoken to Matt, never met him at all. And he came over to me, and we started talking, and we were hanging out. And, you know, we were having a very nice conversation, and it was going very well. And then somebody walked up to the two of us, or the three of us, my wife sitting there, Matt and myself, and this person walked up to our group completely out of the blue and just said, "Oh, Matt, I'm so glad you're talking to Keith. When are you going to have him on your podcast?" And I was just like beyond mortified. I'm like, oh, because now he's in an awkward spot.
Yeah.
I'm in an awkward spot. And it just, I was just like, after that person left, I said, "I'm so sorry that happened. You know, that's horrible." And he was, you know, super gracious about it anyway, but like, you just don't do that. You know what I mean? It's just embarrassing, but people do weird stuff like that, man. And they just think, and here's the thing I tell people, you know, people will say, "Oh, I'm really trying to get this going on. You know, I got this. I just need to come on your show so that this can," and I'm saying, look, first of all, coming on my show isn't going to do a thing for you.
Right.
It just isn't. I hate to break it to you, but I'm not that important. You know, my YouTube channel is not that important. But the problem is we live in this little Catholic bubble sometimes where we think that, you know, the, whatever you want to call it, moderate to larger size Catholic YouTube channels are actually like big. Now there's some that are, obviously, you know, Matt, Taylor, Mark, these guys, you know, but think about this, dude. I find YouTube channels almost every day from people I've never heard of that are like 8th graders, you know, playing kickball that have millions of subscribers.
Yep.
And, you know, we're over here with, you know, 100,000 subscribers, and we think that's the biggest channel in the world or whatever, you know. It's like, dude, coming on my show is not going to make your life any different. It's not going to lead to you quitting your job and having something. I mean, that's just the reality. But I think a lot of people don't understand that. They think, "Oh, this is going to make or break me. You know, this is going to be huge." It's not. It's not going to do anything for you. My biggest interviews that I've done on my channel are with people who don't even have YouTube or any social media at all.
That is 100% true. Some of my biggest podcasts have been people who don't even they're not even online.
Exactly.
I've had a few friends that I've met through doing this, and they've sent me people that, like, "You need to interview this person. It'll be a great podcast." And I'm like, "Yeah, let's try it." And then that podcast ends up doing like 4 or 5 for a channel my size. 400 or 500 views is not small.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you never know. Like, and what I've learned is like you're not looking for big names. You're looking for big stories. You know, you're looking for people that have this. And, you know, the truth is there probably are some things that we miss because, you know, there could be somebody out there with this amazing conversion story that would absolutely be fantastic. And I will never know about him because the only way I ever heard about him was, you know, somebody sent me a DM and said, "Hey, I want to tell my story." And but I get so many of those that I don't even listen to them anymore. You know what I mean? So what you have to do is this. This is my advice to anybody that's trying to do this. Like we said a minute ago, make your own channel, make your own deal, and then let the Lord get that to wherever it needs to get, you know?
And if you're not comfortable on a camera, there's audio, there's Substack. You have so many options that you have no excuse for not sharing your story.
Exactly. And the truth is, like, God might have a bigger plan for that than you could ever even realize, you know?
Yep. Yeah, you could post that and you could get millions of views out of nowhere. I've seen this happen where somebody shares something so important and all of a sudden the whole world's looking at that thing.
Yeah. I mean, think about this. The Scott Hahn conversion story tape that is so famous, okay? That never even should have happened. Like, do you know the story of how that happened?
No, I don't actually.
So Scott Hahn's original conversion story, it's a VHS tape and a cassette. And if you watch it, it looks like it was a complete accident because it was. Basically, what happened was he was at an event, and he wasn't even supposed to speak. And I guess like there was a problem with the speaker and a tech or something like that, and they had to totally punt. And someone asked him, "Hey, would you be willing just to share about your conversion to the Catholic faith?" And without any warning, he was just like, "Okay." And he got up and shared that, and somebody had happened to have the tape rolling for the other speaker or whatever, and that became probably the most viewed Catholic conversion story of all time. And it was this was way before YouTube was a thing. He didn't have a strategy, a plan. He never went to a conference to learn how to do it. He just, responded when an invitation was given, and the rest is history. That can happen.
It is wild just how things work. I mean, you have to look at something like that and say, okay, the Lord was ready for Scott to do that day, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so everything fell together. And I've had things like that happen in my life. Not like that, not like become a famous speaker out of nowhere, but not out of nowhere. I mean, I'm sure that there was things leading up to that he probably could have been a speaker even prior to that at some point. But what I'm saying is it's funny how the Lord works, because you never expect the things that are going to happen are going to happen. And then when they do, you got to either do what the Lord is expecting of you, or I guess you got to stop asking for these things because he's giving it to you. You're not taking it.
Well, see, okay. So all that weird stuff that I've been talking about comes down to this point. And this is kind of back to the mentorship for Gen Z, for guys or girls. Okay. And it's kind of what you just said, Chris. One of the things that we need to do is we need to be ready to be obedient. We need to be waking up every day with the mindset of saying, okay, God, what do you have for me today? What is it that I can do today that's going to glorify you and lead people to you? How can I be used today? And then walk around with that mindset. Like, okay, Lord, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? And then be willing to do whatever he puts in front of you and say yes to these things. Because sometimes we put our eyes up on the stars thinking, oh, I have to do this really big, fantastical thing. But what God's trying to do in your life is something that at the time might seem insignificant and small, but he wants to do something amazing with it. So we have to get ourselves into that habit of radical obedience, where we're willing to just take whatever he says and run with it, and have that mindset when we wake up in the day and say, this day belongs to you, Lord. I belong to you today. And when you do that, you are basically giving him the control. You're putting him in the driver's seat, which means that you're not the one trying to figure it out. You're not the one trying to orchestrate it. You're letting him do it. And sometimes that looks like doing nothing and waiting and being patient and trusting that when things are supposed to happen, they're going to happen. But it also doesn't mean that you sit around on your butt and don't do anything. But it does mean that there's a difference between doing stuff and trying to make something happen. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
Like, the doing stuff is like, I'm going to be about the business of the kingdom of God, and I'm going to be living a life of service and holiness to help other people. That in and of itself is the point. It's not a means to an end. It's not, all right, I'm going to do all these things so that I can get this desired outcome. Right. You might not know what that is. And if you operate according to, like, I'm trying to do these things so that this desired outcome can happen, well, maybe that's not God's will. And you could be just like barreling down this road trying to make things happen. And God's like, no, we're supposed to be over here.
Yep.
So be active in your obedience, be active in the practice of your faith, but don't predetermine what you think needs to happen and then make that happen. Like, that's what happens when we get the whole God is my co-pilot thing where it's like, all right, God, here's what I'm doing. I need you to help me get there. No. That's backwards. We have to be about, God, I'm your vessel. Do through me and with me whatever you want.
Yeah, I have to say, my only advice from my little success, I've had a little bit of success. I won't say I've had a lot of success, but I've had a little bit of success with this podcast and the previous one where I just feel like it's doing what it's supposed to. The times when I've tried to force success out of something, it almost never happens. It almost never works. And it's because I'm relying on myself and trying to do it myself. The times when I just kind of throw it up in the air and say, all right, God, what do you want to do with this? That's always been my best when I've been at my best with these things, whether it's this podcast or the other stuff I've done online. And so my advice to people would be, don't try and force success unless God's trying to give it to you.
Hey, that's amazing. See, you got to just redefine success. Okay.
Right.
Success is not the end result. Success is obedience in the moment.
Yes.
Like success is faithfulness to God in the moment. Success is not like, okay, I'm going to have this world, because we always define success according to what the world defines it as. We're always saying, oh, success means, this big platform or whatever. No, that might be failure.
Yeah.
Success is being faithful to what God has called you to be and to live a life of holiness and virtue. And that is harder when you have a platform sometimes, so, or whatever it is you're trying to do. So success is really defined by those everyday decisions of faithfulness when you don't know what's around the corner.
Yep. Yeah. And on top of that, the difference people can make in just your day-to-day life is as simple as having a rosary on your desk, or having a picture of Jesus somewhere in your office, or having a Bible somewhere visible where somebody might see that and say, hey, what is this that you're Christian? What, tell me about that. And some of those simple things like that. I had a liturgy of the hours on my desk at one point at work, and somebody asked me about it. And that person is now a mass attending Catholic.
Nice.
So like it's little things like that I think make a bigger difference. I could put out 100 podcasts and I would have never reached that guy. But having that out at work, now he's going to mass, and I've made a difference in somebody's life.
That's a great point.
So I think it's important that, this has come up a lot, so I'm just going to bring it up now. The Litany of Humility is such a good devotion. And
that'll crush you.
It really will. I just recently, when I went to confession, that was my penance. And I'd never done the litany. Like, I'll be honest, I had never done it before. So I actually had to Google it. It's like, what? And then not even like a couple days before that, somebody else had mentioned it. I was like, okay, God is trying to convince me that I need to do this. So I'm probably going to start doing that more consistently. I feel like when things come up over and over and over again, and it's not like it's a when it's a natural thing, not something that's forced, God's trying to tell you to do that, like through various people. And that one that's an ego destroyer. Your ego will not be up here anymore when you do the Litany of Humility.
Amen. I mean, I remember the first time I read that, I was like, deliver me from the desire of being loved. God, what do you mean? But when you really dig into it, it's like, okay, this is where this is going. It's all of the things that we do because we desire to be loved. It's like, I don't need to be delivered from being loved. I need to be delivered from the desire of being loved,
Yeah, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, God loves us, and that's all that matters, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the other, so maybe I'll hit you with a different one now, because this is an interesting aspect in my opinion. I think Catholicism is difficult because it's not there's no easy route in Catholicism. Whereas you've got like prosperity gospel, like that's people are trying to make money off Christianity. There's an aspect to like various faiths where there's these, like, for example, the Mormons have no issue. I'm not trying to be mean to Mormons, but there's no issue with them making money doing their faith, right? But in Catholicism, I feel like that's almost the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing. Like, we're not trying to make a ton of money by being Catholic, and that actually makes our job evangelizing almost harder. Like St. Paul, right? He's still building tents while he's evangelizing the early church.
Yeah, it's interesting. You don't hear a lot of conversion stories about people in Catholicism who were down on their luck, became a Catholic, and now all of a sudden, like, life is peaches and cream.
Yeah.
You don't really hear a lot of that. You hear people who learned what it means to sacrifice and suffer, and how hard it is. And I used to struggle with that because people would complain about Catholicism sometimes, and they'd say, "Oh man, why would you want to be Catholic? It's so hard." And the thing I had to really like step back and think about, Chris, was when I compare what Jesus invited people to when he was walking the earth in the Gospels, does it sound more or less like Catholicism versus, some sort of prosperity gospel thing? He called people to the hardest things of all. And
Yeah.
that's the call of the gospel. It's not a call to an easy life, but it is a call to an incredible life and a better life. And that's the thing that, again, we have to strip away that whole expectation of success versus, what's the point?
Yeah.
Because again, if you get into the faith because of what you think it's going to do for your life from a worldly perspective, you're not going to make it as a Catholic, not for 5 seconds.
Absolutely. I made a joke one time, and it was tongue in cheek, but I jokingly said that Judas was the first prosperity gospel because he was trying to make money off Christ.
Wow. Right on.
I mean, that when I said it out loud, I was like, that's kind of cruel. But at the same time, I mean, really, what are they selling with the prosperity gospel? They're selling you a version of Christ that you want to hear, right? And Judas was selling the version of Christ to the Pharisees or the Sadducees or the Sanhedrin, whichever it was, the high priest, whatever they wanted to hear, which was they wanted to hear that Jesus wasn't a good guy and that he was doing bad things and that they would be justified in sending him to the Romans for crucifixion.
Yeah.
So that was my thought process. I mean, it's tongue in cheek, but I really think the prosperity gospel is probably one of the worst iterations of Christianity that exists personally because of that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of had its day though. At least, I think it's sort of waning a little bit. I don't see so many people like in that space as much anymore, and I think it's because of the internet. It's like,
it's really easy to disprove.
When you think about it, where did you see the prosperity gospel people before? It was always on like the Christian Broadcasting Network, TBN, and the televangelists, right?
Yeah.
That's where a lot of that stuff lived. And now we don't need that anymore, and so many of those guys have been exposed for, impropriety or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And I think people are not as enchanted with that. I'm not saying it's not a thing. I mean, it certainly is, but I also
they're still making money, so it still works.
They are, but what's happened is prosperity has shifted.
Yes.
Okay. So it's not just about prosperity in terms of financial. It's about prosperity in terms of you're going to get the life that you want.
Yeah.
If you follow God's will and you do what God wants, you're going to get the life that you want. And I think that's a dangerous way to approach the gospel because, again, it sees the gospel as a means to an end rather than the end in and of itself.
Yeah. And the other thing that I see a lot of online is if you want to hear the worst theological opinions, look for somebody who starts off with, I went to Catholic school.
Oh,
and it's like, I'm sure you can picture a few people right off the top when you hear that phrase, but
that's my favorite one. Yeah.
But I can't stand it when a person who's trying to put out, like, I think they're trying to be fair to Catholics by inviting this person on, but it's like, if you're going to have somebody defend the Catholic faith, pick somebody who is living it, not somebody who allegedly lived it.
Yeah.
You know what I
mean? My old priest used to say, never judge a church by its sinners, but always by its saints.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of saints, St. Patrick, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah,
I should have led with that one.
Yeah, that's right. St. Patty's Day. As a growing up Protestant, St. Patty's Day never really meant a whole lot to me, so I never really there's like so many of these old traditions that I need to jump into as a Catholic, but and I was never like a big drinker. So
yeah,
I never did the whole, hey, it's St. Patty's Day, let's go out and get trashed, for what? I don't know. That does not mean,
Let's celebrate somebody who likely didn't drink much by getting completely wasted. That sounds like a great idea. But there's a lesser known saint that actually saved St. Patrick's life. Are you aware? I can't remember what his name is, but he was riding the chariot with St. Patrick. And in the process of evangelizing Ireland, he had been riding the chariot for like a long time, and he was getting tired. So St. Patrick just switched spots with him. Then St. Patrick's the one driving the chariot. And these pagans and druids did not want St. Patrick to keep spreading the gospel. So they lined up and hid. And when the chariot went by, they aimed for the guy sitting in the driver, not the driver's seat, but in the passenger seat.
Wow.
And they got St. Patrick's, one of his best friends who was helping him to evangelize Ireland instead.
No way.
Yeah. And so he's a martyr for the faith. And he basically saved St. Patrick's life by working till he was too tired to keep working.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm going to look up that saint's name because I've wanted to talk about it for a while. It's such an interesting, because like God does things in the most interesting ways you can think of. For a lot of these, especially early church. Do you have a favorite early church saint?
Ignatius of Antioch, for sure.
Ignatius. Okay. What? Yeah. Just because of his various writings, or?
Yeah, I mean, my wife gave me those writings, his 7 letters, when I was like in the process of converting. And I was like, these are awesome. And then, of course, the story of him on his way to his martyrdom and how he just was like, don't save me. Don't save me. This is what I'm supposed to do here. Like that, to me, that was so inspirational.
Yeah, I've always really, ever since I learned about him, been partial to St. Irenaeus and his giant against heresies writings.
Oh yeah. Those are so good. I mean, I remember learning about those back in seminary days when I was, very not Catholic. We still learned about him a little bit. We didn't really realize how Catholic he was, but we learned about the way that he talked about the faith. We kind of sanitized the Catholic stuff out of him.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I feel like the early church is very appealing to Protestants because they try to, like you said, sanitize Catholicism out of it. I have a book called The History of the Church. It's actually an Anglican take on Eusebius's writings, Bishop of Caesarea, how do you pronounce that? But the book, the translation is great. It's actually, there's almost no Catholic stuff that's omitted. But then I look at the footnotes, and oh my goodness, the footnotes are horrendous. Like he's talking about the papacy and stuff, and then the footnote says, but the papacy wasn't what it is today, and da da da. It's like,
oh man, that reminds me of like back in my Methodist days. One of the classics was Imitation of Christ, right?
Love that book.
But what I remember as a Catholic, when I read a Catholic version of it, I was like, what? Like there's a Protestant version where they take out the whole part about the Eucharist.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the whole section about the Eucharist is missing. They're just like, no, we're not doing that part. I'm like, what?
It is funny to read. I've done this for a couple books now where I'm like, okay, this is what I read growing up. What's the definitive version of it? And then I find out that in my own catechesis, I was being given some books that were more Protestant than Catholic, and I didn't realize it. And I didn't go to Catholic school, but I did go to Catholic catechism growing up. I'm a public school kid. Okay. I can't say I went to Catholic school, and you won't hear the worst theological opinion you've ever heard out of me. But I will say this, the catechesis at the time when I went through catechism, it really wasn't great. And I really hope that over the time that we've been doing these things online, that the catechesis at least has been reinforced by people like yourself or Dr. Taylor Marshall or any of the people putting out more of this content for learning and for just experiencing the faith in a way I couldn't growing up, because we didn't have YouTube until I was already confirmed. I mean, really, I was confirmed in, what year was it? 2006, I think, was when I was confirmed. So YouTube didn't even exist when I was confirmed.
Wow.
Then again, I'm talking to somebody who is confirmed before YouTube as well. So, well, no, you were not confirmed before YouTube.
No, I wasn't confirmed until 2017.
That's right. Yeah. So no, but you were already raised in a faith.
I was raised in a faith, but like, Catholic YouTube was like that helped me a lot when I was discerning.
Yeah. So like, it's funny now thinking back, because when I hit 8th grade and I was confirmed, at that point, it's like there's nothing there for the youth at that point, at least where I was at and what I knew about. And you had to kind of go out of your way to find groups as an 8th grader. And then you had to find somebody to drive you to said groups and participate. And I just didn't have that. There was I didn't have a community around me doing that. So I fell away pretty quick after I was confirmed, and I didn't come back until college. So I like the fact.
Where did you go to college?
I went to college at a very Muslim university. I went to the University of Michigan, Dearborn. Yeah.
Yeah. Right on.
And so I got to experience firsthand disagreements between the Chaldeans and the Muslims coming over from the Middle East. And it gets pretty violent there sometimes.
Wow.
Yeah. And if you ever want to see people who truly live their faith, and I talked about this with Enoch a little bit, somebody who's willing to come over here and settle in an area where the people that are related to the people that are killing the people they're related to are also, well, now you've got you got some actual serious problems when you come over here and you move to Dearborn as a Chaldean, because although they're not, I'm just praying that the violence can stop. But if you're moving to an area where there's already these disagreements, there's going to be problems. And that, for whatever reason, the settlements from the Middle East are all in the same place over here in Dearborn. And so you get like this very strange mix of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there was actual times where I'd go in to the restroom between classes, and there would be like 10, 15 guys in there washing up for their prayer hour that they were about to go do.
Wow.
Which was very odd. I'd never seen it before. I mean, there was a couple people in high school that were, they practiced the Muslim faith. And so I'd only noticed during Ramadan, they wouldn't eat all day, which was, again, I didn't take Lent that seriously growing up. I did give stuff up and didn't eat meat on Fridays, but that was about it for me for Lent growing up. And so seeing these guys taking like Ramadan and their prayer hour, and they'd skip class sometimes because they'd have like whatever Muslims do, and then they'd show up like 30 minutes late. They just took their faith so seriously. And I'm like, if these guys are taking a faith that I don't believe in this seriously, like what am I doing as a guy who grew up Catholic? Exactly. And that kind of fueled me to start doing Catholic things again. And the first thing I did was I went to mass with some friends of mine at that time. Father John Ricardo, you heard of him?
Yeah.
He was still the priest at I think Our Lady of Good Counsel near where I was at. And I happened to catch one of his first homilies about Pope Francis, and it reignited kind of something in me to start attending mass again. And that was kind of the start. And then my wife and her family, that really fueled me into my faith again. Like seeing my father-in-law be a good man who's very, very Catholic and has a lot of answers for most of my questions. I mean, that was one of the most helpful parts of my journey back to Catholicism. And my wife takes her faith very seriously as well. So
beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, really, I think when I'm talking about mentorship, I think one of the most important things you can do is, even if it's not a mentor, is find somebody in your life who can help you.
Yeah. I think that's huge. I think to me, I think the reason why I kind of shy away from the whole mentoring term with what I do is because, to me, mentoring is it's a very personal thing that you have to be like with a person a lot. And I think I'm distinguishing, I guess, like, being a mentor versus like maybe being like inspirational,
Yeah.
Because I think we can inspire people that, that can watch us, but we can't really mentor people unless we're in relationship with them. Because I think of a mentor as like someone who like the mentors I've had in my life, these are people that are very close to me. They know me inside out, and we have these deep conversations, and they're able to help guide my decisions and help me figure things out. I'm not just watching what they say.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a distinction that I make when I think about that.
But I think as far as just setting the right example,
that's
be a public version of mentoring, where you don't actually need to get to know people directly for it, but you can still provide that level of example and confidence for somebody else to see, okay, this person's doing that. What am I doing with my life? Maybe I need to mirror what that person's doing.
100%. Yeah.
And I think that's something that Gen Z has missed out on quite a bit, especially with COVID hitting them right at the end of some of their high school careers, leading into, and actually that the parasocial relationship problem, I think, is inherent to Gen Z. I mean, there's some of that with the millennials. I'm a millennial. But I think Gen Z got hit way harder with it. I think Gen Z develops a lot of parasocial relationships that are kind of a one-way street, especially with things like the degenerate programs where, you know what I'm talking about. They don't get a girlfriend because they've got a special friend online that they can talk to that doesn't actually know them.
Yeah. See, I'm hoping that there's going to be a shift in our society eventually where, and I don't know if it's Gen Z or the Gen A or whoever's after them, is going to completely swing the other direction and reject, you know, digital things in favor of analog things. You know, they're going to reject virtual things in favor of in-person things. And I think that's probably going to happen at some point in time. I hope it does.
Well, actually, the other funny thing that you mentioned that I've noticed a lot of the boomer generation, I'm not trying to call it boomers here, but are still watching mass online. And I'm like, go to church.
There's no reason for that.
Why are you still watching mass on? Like, unless you are unable to like leave your bed, or you're so ill that you can't go, or there's some serious reason keeping you home, I don't know why you would watch mass. You've got a miracle occurring every day, every day. Well, yeah, every day in some parishes, but at least every Sunday. And why aren't you there?
Yeah, I think people just get locked into this thing. I mean, I don't know. I think there can be this sort of, well, we just can get by, you know, we can do, it's fine, you know?
So, all right. So you said something earlier that I do want to touch on again. You said you don't think it's a good idea for young men to be messaging women online, especially if you're married. My question for you would be, well, where would you define the barrier for that? Because like I see people collabing, like for example, I know Matt Fradd, he interviews female guests, and other podcasters interview female guests, and
I interview female guests. Yeah.
So how would you approach that working relationship with people you want to interview or talk to for other podcasters?
First of all, I would say that, you know, there's different rules if you're married, if you're single. Okay.
Yep. Oh yeah, definitely.
So when I make those statements, I'm talking about like for married dudes, you know.
Yep.
But that's not to say single guys need to, I mean, whatever you do, it needs to be above reproach. It needs to be, you need to recognize that there's nothing private about a private message. It's out there, you know? Now, as far as like personal or professional relationships or whatever, I think that's all fine. But I think that there's some kind of boundaries that you have to establish even in those situations. Okay.
Sure.
So for example, you know, the Billy Graham rule has always been the golden standard. You know what the Billy Graham rule is?
I don't know. I have no idea.
So the Billy Graham rule is that if you're a married man, you will never be alone with a woman who is not your wife.
I definitely adhere to that one.
Yeah. So that's kind of tricky sometimes though. Okay. So like, let's say, for example, you work in an office and there's a coworker, you know, and whatever, you know, like you have to have, I mean, it's depending on the circumstance of your life that you're in is what you can control. But like boundary wise, like for me, for example, you know, when I do my interviews in my studio here with a woman, my wife is always here with us, you know, or somebody else is always here with us. Like it might, like you look at a screen, you just see Keith and somebody else, but there's other people in the room, you know? And you know, you just like, if some woman says, hey, I really want to get together with you and meet you and have coffee with you, you know, that ain't happening. You know, I'm like, bring a friend. Right. Or we'll meet with other people, but I'm, you know, like this is where you get into these things, but it goes deeper than that too. Like you should not be having these personal, in-depth conversations about personal matters with people of the opposite sex that aren't, you know, that you're not married to. You just shouldn't be doing that. It's not appropriate, you know? So can you talk to a woman about, hey, I'd like for you to come on my podcast, or, whatever? Sure, you can do that, right?
Yeah.
That's not a
And I've done that too.
conversation.
I've interviewed women on this podcast.
Yeah.
And the commenters will never let me live that one down that I've interviewed women. But
yeah,
sometimes
I don't have a problem with that.
I don't either. I'm just saying, like, sometimes the interview can make sense and sometimes it doesn't. You got to judge who's the right person for your podcast at the time you're doing it, right?
Sure.
So
I'm just saying, like, you
see, this is what I'm talking about. They don't let me live it down.
Yeah. You can have like professional conversations, but you shouldn't be having like private, personal conversations, is my point.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so
yeah, go ahead.
Like, so here's like another example, typically, that, if I'm in a text message with somebody, usually it's like me and my wife in the text message to that person. Or, if I know the other person and their husband, it's like, if I'm in a text, like it's pretty rare for me to send a text to a woman who's not my wife or just her,
Yeah.
You just have to be careful. You have to be, you can't allow yourself to like enter into those personal places like that, where there seems to be sort of like this private relationship happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah. My rule of thumb has always been, I will never send a message to anyone that I wouldn't be okay with my wife seeing.
100%. And this is kind of a different topic, but my wife, my phone, she has full range of this. She sees this whenever she wants. Like, I don't have, like, you should have zero things that are kept away from your wife. Like, she should be able to see your email. She should, like, leave all that crap open. Like, if you walk into my house and you come down to my office, my email is sitting right there. My social media is sitting right there. Nothing is like, oh wait, I don't have the passwords. Like, she's got all my passwords, all that. You just can't have anything that is hidden.
Well, that's like, I've heard people say things like, oh yeah, we got joint bank accounts, but we have our own social media. I'm like, I think at some point, I've seen this with a lot of couples where they have a shared Facebook page. And I'm like, that makes so much sense. Like, when you're married, you literally two become one flesh. Why do we need multiple accounts for everything?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not having the same Facebook as my wife's account because she's addicted to like these crazy reels, and I'd be like, that'd be my algorithm.
No. I'm just saying, like, I get why people do it. Like, I understand that. I see.
Yeah, no, I think I know what you're saying. I think that's great too. But I think that from that perspective of being above reproach and being more safe than you probably need to be is a good thing.
Yeah, never let something cross that boundary too. Once you set that boundary, when you know where that is, yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so I don't want to go off too far into the weeds. I'm hoping we can do another interview at some point in the future. So I'm gonna go a different route here. What advice would you give to an aspiring young creator who has not started their podcast or whatever they're doing yet? Would you suggest brainstorming it? Would you suggest prayer? What should somebody do if they want to get into this space?
Well, of course, yeah, all that. They should brainstorm, they should pray. But let's ask the question, why are they doing this?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the point? What are you trying to do with it? Because and there's no wrong answer. Okay. Like, some people do YouTube just because they think it's fun.
Yeah.
And they're like I have this guy from my parish. He's got the most hilarious YouTube channel I've ever seen in my life. It's so fun. He makes these goofy music videos of himself, and they are so stinking funny. It's hilarious. He's not sitting around worrying about the algorithm and worrying about collaboration and worrying about all this stuff. Like, he doesn't care, and he doesn't get worked up if it's been 6 months since he's made a video. He just does it because he loves it.
Yeah. That's
great. Other people are like, no, I want to make this content because I'm trying to say this specific thing. I think you have to be purpose driven in what you're doing when it comes to your YouTube channel, because some people just do it because they think they have to. I run into so many people who are like, oh yeah, I have a podcast, and I'll look up their podcast and they haven't made an episode in 2 years. And it's kind of like, okay, well, you don't really have a podcast. You just made a couple podcast episodes at times. But like, so I would say this, figure out what you want to do and then make a plan for how often you're going to post episodes, what it's going to be. And here's the other like tangible thing I would say. And this is from doing this the wrong way. Whatever show you're going to make, no matter what the subject is, make 10 episodes before you post the first one. Okay? Because you're going to learn a lot between when you get to like number 3 and number 8.
Oh yeah.
Okay? Like your first few are just going to be terrible. And you're going to learn a lot. And imagine if you got all the way to 10, my prediction is this. When you get to number 10, you're going to go, okay, I need to redo 1 through 7, you know?
Yeah.
And then you'll feel a lot better about it. But some people get super eager and they go out and they buy all this equipment, all this gear. They think it's all about the gear. I mean, I've had so many people go, Keith, well, tell me what cameras I need to get. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do? I don't know. I go, what camera? You know, we want to buy gear. Forget about all that, right? Figure out what you're going to do, make 10 episodes before you even launch the first one. And then ask yourself, is this what I really want to do? Am I having fun with this?
Yeah.
Because if you're doing it because you hope to get something out of it, you're going to fail. But if you're doing it because you love it and because you want to just create this content, you want to just put it out there, then it's not going to matter what happens. And you're going to feel great about it. But do the best you can do it with excellence, because you love it regardless of how many people watch.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's great advice. I at one point in time, and my wife still laughs about this, when I started my first podcast that did actually get monetized and it was making a few dollars here and there, I was like, oh, but if I hit it big, then I can do podcasting for a living. And she was like, yeah, sure. And after a while, I was like, I just like doing this. Why am I pretending like money's the reason I'm doing this? And so I just kept doing it because I liked it, not because I was trying to make money. But the society we've built in America is so money driven. Everybody feels like it needs to be a side hustle, or why are you doing it?
Yeah. And I think if you get started in it with the idea that you're going to make money, I would just forget that. It's going to cost you money.
Oh,
you're going to spend money way before you ever make a dime on it, So don't do it thinking that it's going to become your job. But I do meet people, Chris, who are like, all right, well, they've never done a YouTube channel. They've never done anything like that before. And they're just like, well, I think I'm going to, I hate my job and I like being Catholic. So I think I'm going to quit my job and become like a YouTuber or like start a podcast or write a book, and like I ran into this guy recently who self-published a book and he was just like running around going here. And he just handed it to me and he goes, what should I do with this? I self-published this book, but I don't know what to do. Like, how do I get people to read it? What do I do? And I looked at him, I'm like, I haven't got the first clue what you should do. Like, but what you probably should have figured that out before you wrote the book, unless you just wanted to write the book just to give it to people. I've known other people that have done that too. They've written their own books and they don't care about selling them. They just want to give them out to people because they think, hey, if this could help somebody. That's how I think we should think about this content that we make. We're firing it out. We're giving it to the world and hoping that it helps some people because we just believe in it and we want to share it with people, not because we're trying to get something, but because we're trying to give something. Back to what you said earlier in relationships, be a giver, not a taker. And so many people, when they get into this space, it's all about what they can get. How do I get views? How do I get collabs? How do I get influence? How do I get subscribers? How do I get merch? How do I get all this? Stop thinking about what you're going to get and start thinking about what you're going to give. And ask yourself, is what I'm giving going to be useful to people?
Yeah, I think I heard the best reason I've ever heard for YouTube. It's a channel. Actually, I'll say an online friend of mine, Modern Papist. Have you heard of his channel?
On X?
He's on X. He's on YouTube. He's on a bunch of places. But
I think I've seen him on X.
I think it was Anthony that asked him, like, why are you doing this podcasting thing? Because he doesn't have a co-host. He's kind of speaking to the camera a lot. And it's not like he's got a lot of views on a few of his videos. But he said that in the scenario where I'm not around and my kids want to know my opinions, this YouTube channel exists.
That's a great idea.
Wow. And then you think like, okay, all the content I've done, how would I feel about my kids watching it? And I'm like, oh, there might have been a few missteps here and there. And now that I think about it that way, it's like, okay, I need to make sure that whatever I'm putting out to the world is something I also want my kids to see at some point.
Yeah. Great point.
So, all right. Do you have any questions for me before we wrap this up, Keith?
My question for you is what is the best thing? Like, what's been the most helpful lesson that you've learned from watching online content in like the last 6 months?
The most helpful thing I've learned from watching online content. Oh boy. I think I probably need a co-host after watching Avoiding Babylon. I think that's something I need to work on. I've got a couple of people I might be looking at after my hiatus, bringing on to kind of help balance me out a little bit. I'm good at not having dead air. That's not an issue. But sometimes I find myself in a conversation and I'm not sure where to take it. And having somebody else help guide me through that might be a good thing for this podcast. So I think a co-host would probably be a good thing after that. I learned that from Anthony because he used to do it by himself and then brought on Rob. And I do think Rob helps keep Anthony on track with what they're supposed to be doing with their podcast.
He tries
anyway. Yeah. I mean, Anthony's a tough cookie to guide, but he's a good guy. I like Anthony. I like Rob. But I do think a co-host might be something I need. And that's something I've learned from those guys. Another thing that I've learned is that you should never step into the weeds if you don't have to. Taylor Marshall's been called out by tons of people over the years, and he just never steps into the weeds, or at least he doesn't anymore. I've never seen him step into the weeds once for a single person that's called him out. And I really respect that. That's another lesson I've learned.
That's a great lesson. All right. I got one more question for you. What is your biggest challenge right now?
My biggest challenge? Oh man. Probably balancing my prayer life. I've noticed that when I actually successfully manage to do work, the podcast, and get my divine office in, which I try to do as much as I can. Usually it's morning and evening prayers, about as much as I can get in, or if you're on the old school, it'd be matins, lauds, prime, and
compliments.
Yeah, but also vespers.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I try to do those at least daily if I can. If I can get it in like 3 or 4 days a week, that's a success. But my prayer life, that's hard to balance and also do things like this online and work a full-time job and have your kids and wife also be taken care of, because it's a lot.
It is, brother.
So that's what I'm struggling with. So if you guys want to pray for me for that, that'd be helpful, I think.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Is that all you got, Keith, for questions?
I'm good. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on and giving me your time. And I know you can't get time back, so I hope you enjoyed having this conversation.
I sure did, man. I look forward to seeing you again, and thank you for inviting me. Sorry I had to switch it yesterday. It was weird. So yesterday we were supposed to go out of town, but then we got this huge blizzard that hit.
Oh, geez.
So we didn't go out of town, but we ended up going to our parish to hear somebody gave a talk last night, which I really wanted to hear. So I'm glad that we switched this anyway, because the fact that I was like, I didn't realize that talk was last night when I was scheduled to go out of town. So I was bummed I was going to miss it. I'm like, oh wait, I can go. So it worked out.
You know, it's funny. The last St. Patrick's Day last year was my interview with Anthony. And this year, when we switched it to today, Anthony's calling me out for having my podcast on the same day as Avoiding Babylon. And I'm like, I don't even think I'm like competing with you for an audience, Anthony. So whatever. I think
all right.
Your audience is going to show up to your show, whether I have a show or not. So anyway, one other thing I wanted to mention. So you said you're from Iowa.
Yeah,
that's where my grandfather on my mom's side's from.
Actually. Oh, nice.
So I've been out to Iowa a couple times in my life. It is a cool place. Lots of farms, big tractors, cool place to be.
It's especially cool when it's not winter.
Fair enough. All right. On that note, guys, that's the podcast. I hope to bring Keith back on in the future and have another discussion. And thanks for being here. Anything you want to promote before we close it out?
You know what? Pray the rosary with us. Rosary Crew with Keith Nestor on YouTube. Come over and pray with us every day. We've got a 24/7 live streaming rosary of all the mysteries going. We've got daily live streams. We'd love to have you.
Absolutely. And for the record, I did get Taffy's video uploaded. So for those that heard about him being mad that I didn't play it in the beginning, we're going to close out with it and hope you guys enjoy it. All right, guys. Hopefully I'll see you guys next Monday. I've got a cool interview lined up, but if it doesn't pan out, it doesn't pan out, is what it is. All right. Thanks, Keith. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Thanks, Chris. Take care, everybody.
Oh, you think age is your ally? You merely grew older. I was born an Unk, molded by time. I didn't see youth until I was already a grown man. By then, it was nothing to me but immature.